If you're enjoying this podcast from us here at Which, then why not become a Which member? Right now, we've got a special offer, especially for podcast listeners, meaning you can choose any of our 3 membership tiers for 50% off the usual price. Starting at just £39.50 for a full year, you can get Which magazine delivered direct to your door. For the same price, you could also choose a digital Which subscription, giving you access to all of our product reviews, the Which app, and the digital edition of Which magazine. What's more, you'll also be able to use the Ask Which service for personalised one-to-one buying advice. Or why not get a full access Which subscription for just £49.50 for a full year? Don't forget, that's 50% off the usual price. To join Which or to find out more, just head to which.co.uk/podcast offer. That's which.co.uk/podcast offer, or click the link in the description for today's podcast for 50% off a Which annual subscription.
Hi there, it's James here, and I produce the Which Money podcast. We'll be back as usual with a brand new episode of the podcast this Friday. But before then, we thought we'd pop an extra episode into your feed. Now, the 8th and 9th of October mark Prime Day, confusingly a 2-day event where online giant Amazon offer cut price offers on a range of products. On the face of it, you can get some great deals. But is everything as it seems, or are some of those bargains too good to be true? Well, that's where we come in. I'm going to share an archive episode of the podcast as money experts Gabriel Nussbaum and Andy Webb tell us how to cut through the noise, helping make sure your money goes further. I'll hand over to Which Money podcast host Lucia Ariano for this episode, originally recorded in November 2023.
When life gives you questions, Which? Get answers.
Hello and welcome to the Which Money Podcast, your weekly hit of money news and personal finance hacks to help make you better off. I'm your host, Lucia Ariano, and here's what's coming up this week.
The big question that I do get is whether Amazon Prime is worth the money. And there are 2 answers to this one.
Once you've done that quick Google, perhaps, and you're looking between £4.10 and £4.20 for an item, for example, you just got to think to yourself about time effectiveness and cost effectiveness. Is it worth trusting a website that you don't know to save that 10p, that 20p? Or is it worth going with the one that you know, even though you have to pay that slightly higher premium?
This week on the podcast, we're discussing online giant Amazon. Since starting life in a garage in Seattle in 1994, the platform is now expected to reach sales over $427 billion in 2023. And it's easy to see how, with millions of us using the site every single day. So with Black Friday approaching, how can we make sure we're getting the best deals? And here's a big question. Is it possible to live without the retail giant? To discuss all of this and more, I'm pleased to say I'm joined by 2 brilliant guests. First, money expert and the founder of BeCleverWithYourCash.com, Andy Webb. And alongside him is money content creator and influencer Gabriel Nussbaum, otherwise known as his alias, That Money Guy. Hello, both.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Well, first things first then, as you're both new to the Money Podcast, do you mind telling us a little bit more about yourselves and how you got into what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've always been a money saver. I don't think I was necessarily conscious of how ingrained it was in my daily thinking and life. But when I was looking for a career change about 10 years ago now, I kind of realized it was something that, it wasn't just something that I did, but it was something I really loved. And it was also something that I could maybe do to help others. So yeah, set up BeCleverYourCash.com. And we're nearly a decade on now, but 6 million views a year. Thank you. Yeah, it's been amazing. Got a YouTube channel, got the podcast all doing really well. And I still feel so lucky that I'm able to really make a difference to people's own lives and their money.
I can't wait to hear some of your expertise then. And Gabriel, you too, how did you get into it?
So I suppose similarly to Andy, I've always been that guy in my social circle since as young as I can remember, being the one recommending, which bank account has the best interest rates, what to do here and there. I was quite passionate about educating people about things they learn outside the classroom, those things that schools forget to teach us. And after a short, I suppose, little stint trying to find which sector of that I found most interesting, I settled on the one that I was actually working in. So finance it was. And I continued to start creating these short little skits, 30-second TikToks, Instagrams, you name it. I was creating it about personal finance and financial literacy. And so I've just continued doing that now. And it's coming up to almost 3 years of creating content online around the topic.
Well then, where shall we start with this beast that is Amazon? Because the scale of it is, well, it's like nothing else, is it? So how often do you both find yourself using the platform?
I thought this was a very topical question because I think my last delivery came in yesterday. So there's a good answer for you. But no, I mean, it's probably the most common website that I will use for shopping, full stop, probably at least 5 times a month, if not more. It kind of feels like your right-hand man. It feels like that place that I will go to for anything and everything. Plus, of course, I use access to Prime TV. That's one of the main other benefits that I'm using with Amazon myself.
Yeah, well, I think I did probably used to be like Gabriel, back in the day, but now I use it very, very, very rarely, and I don't want to spoil what we'll talk about later on, but it's an exception where I use it now, and more often than not, is I get a free trial of Prime every December, so I can watch my team Crystal Palace on the Premier League fixtures they've got. But broadly than that, I generally try to avoid spending money with Amazon as much as I can now.
Well, that was a little teaser. So we will get back onto your kind of quitting of Amazon in a way later on in the show. But what you mentioned just there about getting a Prime trial, that they do make it so easy for us, don't they? Because even if you're not a Prime member, I've been offered a trial time and time again.
Yeah, and sometimes you can do it without even realising. It's auto-selected that that's the option, because as far as they're concerned, we're doing you a favour. We're letting you have free delivery on this order, or you've already had it, but we'll give you a week for 99p, and don't worry about it. You'll save some cash, and it can be very easy to kind of get sucked into to accidentally to sign up, and then once you're signed up, you pay and you keep paying and you keep paying.
Well, it's super easy to get sucked in, and we're going to be talking all about that today. So shall we start from the beginning then? You're shopping and you found the particular item you want to buy. Or actually, let's go a step back. Maybe you're browsing for that item, because we've all been there, haven't we? You search for, say, a charging cable and you're blown away by the sheer number of results. And you might be tempted to go for one of the best sellers. But as we've investigated at length at Which, you're then up against whether or not reviews are genuine or fake. It's a bit of a minefield, isn't it?
I mean, I find this really frustrating. There are so many results just when you are, looking for any item now, and you're seeing brands that you've never heard of. There are so many varieties, so many options that it can be, almost impossible to kind of discern between one or the other and know which one to go for. And obviously you're going to look at price, but then after that, star ratings and reviews, naturally you're going to think, right, this is going to help me decide between these different options and help me make that choice. But, Which have done so much research into this, it is really, really hard to know, what actually is going to be genuine.
Absolutely. And another thing to add to the mix when it comes to reviewing reviews is the question of whether customers have been incentivized to leave a review. And I should also say that if you've shopped at Amazon and received direct contact from the seller offering compensation of any kind, you can send this evidence to Amazon by emailing report-review-compensation@amazon.co.uk with details of the product name and a photo or screenshot of the compensation offer. And now then, so once you've found that product you want to buy, how can you be sure you're paying the best price? Because first things first, Amazon's not always cheapest, is it?
Absolutely not. I mean, one of the easiest and quickest ways that I'm using in my everyday life is simply just Googling the item. I mean, Google is a search engine that takes into account hundreds of sellers, not just Amazon in and of itself. However, there's also kind of an idea that I like to share a lot about cost effectiveness. So let's say you're looking to buy something really, really cheap. I don't know, we're talking less than £5. Once you've done that quick Google, perhaps, and you're looking between £4.10 and £4.20 for an item, for example, you just got to think to yourself about time effectiveness and cost effectiveness. Is it worth trusting a website that you don't know to save that 10p, that 20p? Or is it worth going with the one that you know, even though you have to pay that slightly higher premium? Now, obviously, this isn't always taken into account, because when you're looking at premium products, this is when I would kind of start to advocate for this better practice of shopping around. Another thing that I also want to mention when you're asking whether Amazon is the cheapest, especially if you're a student or if you are someone that has access to discounts, it's always good to look at what you have available, because quite often these aren't on Amazon. So when you are looking at the prices, I suppose at kind of a level standing, yes, perhaps Amazon is the cheapest place to shop. But all of a sudden, let's say you're a student and you're looking to buy a product from Apple, and they have education pricing with discounts during, the summer period, which they do pretty much every single year. And with your discount, you might be looking at a cheaper price than Amazon, going directly to Apple. So this is just something that you should always be wary of, especially if you have access to something like that.
And of course, now we're talking a week before Black Friday, and Amazon's Black Friday promotions have already begun. And it's not alone there either. But let's say then you see a markdown price. We should be wary of being drawn in, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the same for any retailer out there. And every year we see the same adverts promising these massive discounts. And that can be really enticing. You think, I'm going to save so much money if I buy this right now. But if you dig a little bit deeper, often what you'll find is that higher price, that recommended retail price that they're giving you as that benchmark for the discount, that's not what it's been selling at in reality. There are some very clever websites out there, Price Spy. If you're looking at Amazon itself, one called Camel, and that will give you the price history, and you can go back and you can actually see how much was it selling for a week ago, a month ago, 6 months ago. And that is a really good way to get that guide price. So when you see a discount come along during Black Friday or any time of the year, if it's kind of not as good as that price that you're seeing at that historical price, then this isn't necessarily the deal they're saying it is.
And of course, the limited time deal doesn't help, or, whatever terminology they use, it doesn't really help with that ethos of trying to wait and, sit on a deal and think about it. It just wants you to jump on and buy it straight away, doesn't it?
It does, but if you are really worried about things disappearing, and as long as you've checked the returns policy, remember, not everything sold by Amazon on Amazon is by Amazon, so just double check that. But if you know the returns policy and you decide later on you don't want it, you can of course return it. Or a little trick that I used to do with Amazon with those kind of deals is opt for it to be delivered in like 2 weeks' time or a week's time or whatever it is, a later date. So you've got that moment, you've secured it, it's yours, it's no one else is going to get it. But then you can always, if you want to, roll back and just cancel the order before it's been dispatched.
Well, that's a nifty little hack. I haven't heard that one before.
Give it a go. It's it can make that little bit of difference if you are worried about that stuff. But I would still urge you just to be cautious of any of those like time pressured ones, because that's one of those tricks, as we say, that they just want to try and tempt you into spending money you hadn't planned to spend.
And Gabriel, what advice would you give for getting the best deal on Amazon? And I know we've just mentioned there Camel, and you've talked a lot about price tracking on your TikTok.
Yeah, I have, absolutely. I mean, the reason why I've already spoken about Camel is because it's just so simple to use. I mean, on every product you click on, you go down, you see that graph of historic pricing, and it's so quick to understand whether or not your sale price is actually a sale. I mean, the amount of things I did not buy last year on Black Friday just because I noticed straight away that this was not the cheapest price. And I'm fairly sure there are studies around Black Friday sales in general, not just Amazon, but the amount of retailers that are not showing you or offering their cheapest price even throughout that same year compared to what they're offering it to you on Black Friday. So it's just something to be wary of.
And I've also seen you talk about Amazon Warehouse. So for anyone not familiar with it, and I know I wasn't, what is it? And are there actually good deals on there?
I absolutely love Amazon Warehouse. I don't think it's spoken about enough at all. And it's essentially the place that products will go back to when they're returned. But if they're not good enough to be sold completely as new, so that could be anything from the person somehow has damaged the product that's received it, or it's been damaged in delivery, all the way up to there's something on the box and they can't replace the box of the product itself, so they have to sell it, as used. Amazon Warehouse is the place to go. And I've heard of fantastic stories of people buying things at incredible discounts. Now, the best way to actually find it is, that little tab when you're searching for something on Amazon where you get all of the different categories of items. Well, Amazon Warehouse is right there, or you can just Google Amazon Warehouse itself. And then it will tell you exactly what condition your item is in. And these are things like it's renewed, which is like, when they've refreshed an item themselves, or is it used? Is it like new? All these kind of descriptions as to what the actual item is like when you're about to purchase it.
So, you told us there that you've heard some really good stories. Let's hear one of those.
I think even a simple one, someone I remember a friend of mine was trying to buy an espresso machine. And I think it was £30 off for it said completely as new, this item. Yeah. They received it, perfect condition, £30 discount off an item that is a couple of £100. Now, it's just a brilliant and easy saving for something that, they might not have thought about otherwise. And I'm sure there are even bigger savings and discounts out there. And of course, I'm fairly certain that with the Amazon Warehouse, it is backed and guaranteed by Amazon as well. So you can always return that item if it comes to you in a condition that you did not expect it to be in.
Well, definitely something else to check, another string to add to your bow. And now we'll be back in a moment to hear what happened when Andy quit using Amazon altogether, and plenty more Amazon tips and hacks. So, Andy, we've been teasing through the show that we'd be talking about what it would be like living without Amazon. Well, I know this is something you actually did. How was it?
Yeah, so this was a few years ago, and I set myself the challenge that I would do 12 months without Amazon. And I really thought it would be a challenge. I thought it was going to be something very, very hard. But very quickly, I realized it wasn't actually going to be that difficult.
Really?
And not only was it kind of relatively simple to find the same products elsewhere, it actually, in many cases, if not most cases, ended up being slightly cheaper by just doing that kind of thing, things we've spoken about already, shopping around, finding other deals, finding other discounts. And I don't really feel that actually in that whole year of that challenge that I missed out on anything really at all. Yes, there might be the odd special offer, £5 off if you spend 30 quid on this thing over here. That there's little extra coupons, things that come along. But a little bit of planning ahead, so you don't, you're not relying on that next day delivery. It was really surprising, but also ultimately, really, really refreshing.
That was what I was thinking, actually, as you were saying that, probably would require just that little bit more organisation.
Yeah, but again, we know when our nephew's birthdays are. We know when these things are coming along. There will be sometimes, when you need something urgent, something that's happened and you need something there and then, and you might not be able to find another online retailer which can deliver it, or you might not be able to find a shop that can do it. So I do think in some cases for people, this isn't about doing what I did, which was going completely cold turkey. But I definitely think from what I learned doing it, if we give it a try, we might also be surprised and realize just how much we're not just relying on it, but over relying on it. And ultimately, missing out on other opportunities. And that there's also that flip side of Amazon we've spoken about some already, all these clever little tricks that encourage us to spend, encourage us to buy things. There certainly were things that if you looked at my Amazon history prior to that date that I've bought, and I'm like, why did I buy that? I probably bought it because there was a really good price, or there was another special offer that I combined with it. But then did I really need it? Was it something that I can live without? Yeah, I can't be completely transformed by this. I do think it's something that we should all consider trying on, at least on a short-term basis, and see how we're going, because it can make a huge difference.
Well, that's right, isn't it? And, a positive that could come out of it, of quitting using Amazon or other big giant retailers, is that you might shop more locally. I remember when I was at uni, this is one example that always comes to mind. It's one of my lecturers many moons ago was urging us to buy from bookshops and not from Amazon. And, yes, I do try and do that. And actually, I've got a bookshop just around the corner from where I live, so it's quite easy for me now. So I do try and stick to that one. But that is a positive that could come out of it, isn't it? Shopping local and supporting small businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of my big frustrations that actually, buying books is very often very expensive outside of Amazon. And that's because Amazon is, it's possibly making a loss on some of these big titles. The prices that it sells them at are so incredibly low that it's very hard for these other retailers to kind of to match that, whether it's like national chains or there's local independents. But ultimately what will happen is they could well disappear. And then all we've got left is Amazon, and they might not decide they want to keep doing that. They might not want to have the cheaper prices or the free delivery. And we saw just last month where there were extra charges added if you wanted same day delivery for Prime members. So, this is something I think it's worth us all thinking about. If we can physically get to local shops and we can afford to spend maybe that little bit more in places, that we could, it's useful to make that call, make that choice there, and maybe elsewhere. That's where you can maybe, be a bit more easy with your principles, but choosing where things are really going to make a difference.
Since you ditched Amazon all those years ago, has it changed the way you shop now?
Certainly. I mean, Amazon used to be my go-to place, the first place I would go. And the only reason I'm on Amazon now ever is because, I might be writing about it for some reason, for, looking for deals for people, because I know that people are still going to shop there. And if there is a good deal, I'll tell people about it. But yeah, I've kind of very, 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 very rarely spend any money with them. And I also kind of, not perfect at this, but I do get out to those sort of the high street more often and spend more money, actual money in the shops more than I did before that.
And Gabriel, what about you? Do you think you could ditch Amazon?
Absolutely not. No, that's the wrong answer.
Kick the habit.
Do you know what? I think that Andy's raised a lot of brilliant points there. And I think even in my own life, I have found myself starting to, look for more options rather than just solely rely on Amazon. I think kind of one note that Andy touched upon, which was around buying things just because you're on Amazon and you're not quite sure why you bought it there in the first place. And I think that's definitely something that I would like to be more conscientious about. Just, from a sustainability point of view, stop, putting more products into the world, but also from a lifestyle and a financial perspective. I mean, they are so good at selling. This is what they do. And even myself, I preach myself as that money guy, the person that's good at saving money. I'm susceptible to it. I can look around my room right now and tell you 5 things. I'm not quite sure why they're here. So I think that I'm up for the challenge, Andy, if you'll have me.
Excellent. Give it a go. See how you do.
I'll see you in 12 months.
Okay, producer Rob, make a note of that, please. Well, I'd like to open the floor to you both now, as I know you have big followings online and on socials. So I'm wondering if your followers have come to you with any questions about Amazon, and maybe we can address a few of them here too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the big question that I do get is whether Amazon Prime is worth the money. And there are 2 answers to this one. If you make the most of it, and you really are going to kind of utilize all the features that come with it, including the music streaming and the film streaming, and you really need the fast delivery and all the other little tiny bits which we might not even be aware are there. If you use all of those, then it can be, relatively good value for money. The problem comes in if you are just a kind of a casual user, which I think most of us have been when they've got Prime. We get it and we either pay up front for it, or we get it month by month and that payment just keeps coming out. Because that kind of brings us back to that temptation just to use Amazon, because we're paying for Prime. So we are going to go to Amazon first of all. We are going to not shop around. We are not going to see if there are alternative options for delivery. Because why would you pay for delivery elsewhere if you've kind of already paid for delivery with Prime? And all those extra bits like Prime Day. What is Prime Day if not, okay, hey, look, spend money with us. You're try and make us feel exclusive as members, but really it's to try and get us to part with more cash. So I actually think, unless you are someone who's out in the sticks and really relies on it, or you are using everything all the time, this is actually, I think, that first step in order to try and maybe reduce your usage of Amazon. Cancel Prime and see how that changes your behavior. And you can always sign back up. In fact, they often give you a free 30-day trial every 12 months, if not more often. And you can time that trial for, like I do, when the Premier League football is on in December, or when you've got like that, your kid's birthday party coming and you're going to need loads of those supplies, which you can't get anywhere else, or think at least you can't get anywhere else. Give it a try. And if you might come round to those dates and think, I don't even need to do that as well. So yeah, that's what the big question is Prime worth it? And I would broadly say no.
That's so funny, Andy, because that is the number one question that I get as well.
Is it really?
So often. And I think that I agree with absolutely everything that you've said. I would encourage anyone that does have it or has signed up for a year already and maybe they're locked in just do a quick Google of, the benefits with Prime and make sure that you are utilizing everything they have to offer, because there is a lot there. And if you are utilizing all of them, then suddenly it does start to look like better value for money. But if you're not, or if you're thinking about it, again, take a look. Are they benefits that you're going to use purely because you're paying for it, or are they benefits you actually need? And a few of the other points that you mentioned as well. For example, paying for 10 months of Amazon Prime is cheaper than paying for it for a year. So switching to that monthly schedule and not using it and making sure that you stop paying for it on the months that you don't need it. Like I said, 10 months is cheaper than a year. And then other occasions, for example, if you're a student and you get that half price discount, then other things can come into play. Or if you're in a household where, remember when I had 2 older sisters living at home, my parents, and we decided to split it between the 4 of us into one household. And then all of a sudden you're bringing the price down per person again. So there are ways that can make it slightly more effective for yourself. But I'm going to leave it with this last thing, which, do you know what I'm sure many people won't realize? You can still shop on Amazon if you don't have Prime.
It is true. Although, what's the kind of minimum to get free delivery?
I'm fairly certain, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong if you know the answer, but that it's £20 for free delivery and maybe £10 for books.
I think it's all gone up more recently. I think it's still £10 for books, and I think it's 25 quid for for everything else. But that's about behavior as well, and it's about saving your purchase up. So if you do need to buy 2 or 3 things, you just buy them all together rather than one at a time, and you'll get that free delivery. So yeah, absolutely, you can still shop at Amazon without Prime and still get a lot of those features, and just save yourself that that £95 a year.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today, and you shared so many nuggets of goodness. Thank you both so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Life can get hectic when you start a family, but Which can help you make confident decisions from improving your home to financial planning. We'll make sure you're prepared. Whether you're looking to reduce your household bills, seeking advice around your child's health, or want to find our best buys for your new home, Which has got you covered. Use our expert advice to make the right choices for you and your growing family by visiting which.co.uk/growing family. That's where you'll find everything you need to make confident decisions and have peace of mind that all the advice you're getting is 100% independent. So to find out more, just head to which.co.uk/growing family.